My name is Ross Simmonds. I am the founder of a company called Foundation, as well as the author of a book called Create Once, Distribute Forever. Happiness to me has always been defined ever since I wrote it down in my yearbook back in the early days, where I said, find things every single day that give you joy. And from the moment you wake up until the moment you close your eyes at night, try to do those things as much as possible. And for me, that's always been happiness, being able to wake up and go to bed and do the things that give me joy in between.
Man, Russ, I love that, man. So in your yearbook, you mean like high school yearbook?
Yeah, and my high school yearbook, it was like the thing, you know how you get to like sign something at the bottom of
Yeah,
your like thing? Yeah, in mine it said, my goal in life is to wake up, go to bed, and do what gives me joy in between. And I've always strived for that, even today, and I live by it and remember it all the time.
that's beautiful. Well, I bet the family's giving you a lot of joy, huh? How the kids?
Tons of joy. The family is amazing. Three little ones. It's a lot of fun. Kids have been the ultimate mental shift that has been necessary. It makes things go by faster, but it also requires me to kind of slow things down a little bit as well. But it's been fun. I love it. Dad is the best title that I've ever had in all my life.
I love that. Well, congrats on that as well, my friend.
Thank
And
you.
congrats on
Appreciate
a
it.
great
Appreciate
book.
it.
The book
Thank
is
you. Thank you.
fantastic. It's really good. I dove into it. There's lots of stuff we could talk about, but I got to ask one silly question first. So, are
Let's
you
do
related to Richard Simmons? Any relation?
it. No relation to Richard
All
Simmons.
right.
I know that it's funny. Back in the day when the internet first got started, people would try to find out who I was, and they would go to Google and they type in Ross Simmonds, and the only people that would show up was like Richard Simmons, Gene Simmons, Rick Ross, and like some random guy named Ross Simmonds as well. And that was like the early days of the like internet version of Ross Simmonds. And I can remember like no one being able to find me except for Richard Simmons. And I was like, I got to beat this guy. Like he's owning my name. So I started to produce a bunch of content with the intent of like Google Images needs to be me. It can't be all these other folks. But I think there's a few images of some random people in there still today. But that was like an early driver for me on why I wanted to create content online. It was like, I just need to show up.
There you go. Yeah. Speaking of showing up, man, you show up well in the
Thank you.
book. So
Appreciate it.
so let's talk about your Sherlock Homeboy method,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
super
Let's do
funny,
it.
man. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. So what is this Sherlock Homeboy method of content distribution?
Yeah, so the Sherlock Homeboy methodology is this idea of essentially reverse engineering. So I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan. I love the movies. I've always been a big fan, and I've been a geek my whole life. So the idea of aspiring for Sherlock Holmes level like intuition and excellence as it relates to cerebral ability would always be like a goal for me. My wife has it. I don't have it, but I strive to be there someday. When I look at business, when I look at marketing, when I look at growth in general, I believe in using what I call the Sherlock Homeboy method, which is essentially you need to start from the goal, someone or a brand or a business that has achieved something, that has unlocked success at something, and then work your way backwards using essentially your Sherlock Homeboy technique to reverse engineer what led to success for them. So for me, when I go into a new channel, I oftentimes will identify who is the best at YouTube. And then I will spend hours studying the ways in which they're using that platform and then use that to inform my own approach. Or I'll look at how someone is leveraging a channel like LinkedIn, see who's generating traction, reverse engineer that. Or if we go from a client perspective and I'm looking to understand how a client can achieve a certain goal, I'm going to look at where their audience is spending time, what stories are resonating in those communities, and use that. So for me, the Sherlock Homeboy methodology is essentially just being curious about different things. You don't need to just apply it to marketing. You can even apply this to happiness, like to that point, right? Like I think if you applied the Sherlock Homeboy methodology to happiness, I personally have done this by like looking at people like my mom. My mom is like ridiculously big into community. She loves giving back and she's always happy. Like she's once in a while she gets upset because I do things like go skydiving and stuff like that, but that's a different discussion. But like she's generally a very happy person. And for me, I use my Sherlock Homeboy method to be able to say, okay, mom's super happy. Why? Because she gives more than she takes. So she's constantly out in the community. She's constantly like acting like a service to others, and that gives her joy. So when I see that, I can be like, all right, I'm going to emulate that and use that. And hopefully I can see if that provides me with happiness. And funny enough, if you do things that other people do that are typically happy, you tend to get happier too. So that's kind of been not only a mantra and an idea that I've embraced in my professional career, but also in my personal life as well.
Absolutely. Wow, that's great. And it's great to hear that you have such a cool mom, that she's all about giving and all about happiness. That's really
Yeah,
cool,
she's
man.
on another level.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
is awesome. Cool. Cool, cool. Well, let's move in from the homeboy method to the remix, which I
Yeah.
really like, man. You talk about the remix, and I got to tell you, this is the one that stood out to me as
Mm,
something that we got to talk about. So talk to me,
love it.
what the heck is a remix, and how
Yeah.
does that work when it relates to marketing?
Yeah, so everybody has heard of a remix as it relates to music. And essentially that's like taking something old, turning it into something new, bringing in new features, bringing in a new beat, bringing in a new artist, modifying a few elements of it, all of those things. You bring that to life and the audience will respond well to it. All you need to have in the original is like a little bit of a spark, a little bit of an idea that really resonates with culture, that resonates with people. As marketers, as creators, as people who build things online, oftentimes we'll create things that have a spark and then we let it collect us. We assume that that's the day in which it existed and it no longer needs to be used and repurposed. When in reality, we should be remixing our greatest hits. If you have an asset, if you have a piece of content, if you have a video, a podcast episode that really resonates with people, you should be remixing that. You should be turning a podcast into a LinkedIn post, into a carousel, into a video asset, into a YouTube short, into a Instagram reel. You can turn these things into so many different assets and find unique and interesting ways to add a spin to it. And I think for creators, we need to get inside of the head of kind of the big brands like Disney, who every few years they remix one of the stories that we all fell in love with. Lion King 2, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, then they throw Beyonce into it. Like they're always remixing old stories, right? And for us as marketers, as creators online, we too need to be familiar and comfortable remixing our greatest hits and bringing them back to people and giving them to them on a regular basis.
Yeah, I love how you showcase Disney in the book. It's so powerful and it's
Thank
so
you.
interesting because you talk about, you didn't talk about the Avengers, but the
Right.
Avengers are essentially comics
True.
remixed.
Exactly.
Really, there's nothing
Yeah.
simpler than taking something that's already been successful
Yep.
and then spinning it into a movie, spinning it into the What If series, spinning it
Right.
into
Right.
anything at all. But why do you think that marketers are reticent to not to embrace that, Ross?
Yeah, I think the main reason why marketers are a little bit hesitant to embrace the remix is because they overestimate how many people they've reached the first time, and they
Mm,
underestimate how busy everyone else is. And we all think that we're going to remix something and adjust something, and people are going to call us out and say, "I've seen this a million times. Like you've said this 20 times." But in reality, most people haven't. Most people are caught up in a lot of their own day to day, and we as marketers get in this rabbit hole of always trying to come up with something new instead of remixing things from the past. And I think honestly, it's marketers' fault. It's like the marketers have made the mistake for the last few decades of preaching at the top of their lungs. Everybody just needs new content. Create content, create content. The world will be yours. And the marketing industry has listened. And I am guilty as charged. I can remember back in like 2019 going on stage and saying, create a bunch of content every single day. You just need to create, create, create. And people listening, but those folks not realizing you actually have to promote that content. You need to distribute it. If you have a piece of content that resonates, you probably should continue to share that piece until every single person who you want to connect with sees it, right? Like we forget the value of taking these ridiculously valuable things that we've created and then distributing them literally forever, which is why I wrote the book.
yeah. Wow. Wow. I know I forget about that. That is
Right.
that is probably my biggest Achilles heel, not to talk
Mm,
about Hercules, right? But the
right, right.
Achilles heel of my marketing is
Yeah,
that I don't share it enough. So how much is enough? Is it,
yeah,
1 to 10, 1 to 20 times? I mean, I created this great book,
yep.
let's say.
Yep.
How many times should I share it, Ross? How many times are you going to share your book?
Yeah. So create once, distribute forever will probably be promoted and amplified forever, unless something wild happens where we are completely connected to VR sets and humans are no longer operating and existing the way that we do. I will talk about this philosophy and this idea for a very long time. And maybe there will be a like new version of it, which is the remix coming to life. Like you might have to change things with the times, but it should be promoted literally forever, in my opinion. And when you think of podcasts, when you think of these types of experiences, webinars, whatever it might be, those things, in my opinion, should be promoted like probably 10 times over the course of just a single month. And I know that makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. They're like, whoa, you want me to promote this 10 times? Yes. But the ways in which you promote it are going to differ. You don't need, when I say promote it 10 times, doesn't mean 10 LinkedIn posts. That could mean you're going to include a PS update in your signature where it's going to say, PS, you need to check out my latest episode with me and Ross talking about this subject. Or PS, Throwback Thursday. Everybody on that Thursday who's going to get an email from you is going to get an update on a piece that you created. Or in your newsletter where you share another link, you might include a reference to another asset that you created. Or maybe you're answering a question in Quora or in Reddit and you're plugging a link to this piece that you created 6 months ago. When I say 10 times, that's the type of thinking that I'm talking about as it relates to getting these pieces out there. So for create once, distribute forever, great. People might not see it on my Twitter or on my LinkedIn account every day for the next week, but they can rest assured that I'm probably plugging it in a newsletter. I'm probably on a podcast. I'm probably on a webinar talking about it. I'm using different ways to communicate and distribute that story to get the same result, which is more people seeing and hearing about the thing I'm trying to get out there.
I like that. And I think one of the things that you maybe didn't explicitly say, and that is don't promote it with exactly the same wording on this, on every different platform, right? Not just, don't be a link litterer.
Exactly. I love that. I've never heard that. A link litterer. I love that.
There you go. It's yours now. So with that, right? So people do that though. They just drop links.
True.
Because you talk about scheduling in the book.
Yeah.
And people just drop the same link over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, no, that's not what Ross is talking about.
No.
Talk to me about how different you have to be between Instagram and LinkedIn.
Yeah. Every platform is different. There's a few things that make it different too. And the nuances of one platform can be substantially different and worth noting on another. So when you think of two different platforms, you have to recognize that there's always going to be different audiences. And there's always going to be a different reason why people go to these platforms. When someone is going to LinkedIn, they're looking for business related content. They might be looking for connections. They might be looking for a new job. They might be trying to elevate their career. So they have that mindset. On Instagram, people are typically trying to be distracted. If people are on Reddit, they're trying to be distracted or get some news or information, right? Like the mindset that your audience goes into these channels with is very different. So you have YouTube. It could be a whole wide range of different things. Like you could be starting with the search query. So you have to start with that understanding that the intent and the reason why people are there is different. Then you have to either one, flow within the way in which they expect content, or you must completely disrupt it and do something wildly different. So on LinkedIn, that might mean you're going to bring over a format that works extremely well on something like TikTok, and that's going to disrupt what people expect. That might work. Or you're going to think about, okay, we need to make this educational because people on LinkedIn want to be educated. They want to be informed. So we're going to provide them with that type of content. On Reddit, however, you might realize that if you took a link and you dropped it into one of the various subreddits, you're probably going to get blocked. Bye, Felicia, you're gone, you're done. Like, we don't want you here. And that won't be fun. So what you need to do is you need to actually reverse engineer and study the communities that you go into on a subreddit or some other channel and see what types of stories those people want. And then you give it back to them. So instead of just being a link litterer, great, call it. I love that idea. Instead of being a link litterer, you're going to be adding value with your links. So I'm going to answer questions in Reddit and I'm going to incorporate my link within it. I'm going to go into LinkedIn and I'm going to write a post in the format that people expect. So it's going to have a captivating hook at the beginning, might be a little bit dense in terms of text at the beginning. And then I'm going to have a call out at the bottom, driving people to the link. Or if I want to play and experiment, maybe I'll say, drop a comment below and I'll send you a DM with the link. So you experiment on the channels and recognize that same post doesn't work on Twitter. that same post will fall flat on Facebook. You need to differentiate and recognize the nuances again on each of these channels, which is why an entire section of the book is dedicated to like different channels and being specific around this is how you win on Reddit, this is how you win on newsletters, etc. Because I wanted to make it tactical so folks could take it and say, I'm using LinkedIn. Let me digest and understand LinkedIn as a channel. Let me use that specific part.
Well, that's so powerful and such a great reminder for all of us that we have to be the same, repeat the same message, but differently on each and every platform.
Right.
It is not enough just to say the same thing, or it's not enough to post it once.
Right.
Like Cobbler here, I'm giving it back to you here because I know I don't do that.
Right.
So how do you make sure, Ross, that you do that?
Yeah.
Do you have a team now that does that, or what's the deal?
I do have a team, but I've started this from the ground up, right? And from the ground up, I always embrace this same philosophy. And I'll talk you through exactly how it works. So essentially, I create a series of assets and stories that I want out there. So when you even said no link littering, in my mind, I'll talk you through how I would approach this as a concept that would turn into a bunch of different things. So link littering, that's the concept. I would write a few tweets that talked about that concept, and I'd use those two words constantly in them. And I'd start to look at the analytics I'd share them on LinkedIn as well to see how many are getting bookmarked, how many are getting likes, etc. At that moment, I'm looking for a signal. I'm looking for a signal that I have what I call content market fit. And I talk about this in the book. Content market fit is when you have content that resonates with your market. And when if they show that they care about something I'm saying, the same way that I just resonated with that, that's when I'm going to double down. So how do I double down? I literally start to think, okay, I just created this post. It was short and sweet on X, and it resonated with people about link littering. Maybe I need to create a piece on 5 things that every link litterer does wrong. 5 things that every link littering reformed link litterer knows, or something like that. So I'd create a series of these different types of ideas, and then I'd start to schedule them. I'd start to write them, and again, start to see which ones are generating traction. If you have a list piece or a piece that's breaking out steps to do something, those are chef's kiss as it relates to carousels. So then I turn that into a carousel with the exact same content, except it's in a different format. Maybe I'd show a graphic or a visual of myself. I'd go into an AI tool to recreate me littering somewhere with a bunch of links. That would be the visual. And then I'm sharing that online as well. And then I'm seeing what type of traction I get. And then eventually I'm going to run a podcast or a webinar that is dedicated to how to stop link littering and why link littering is the #1 problem in social media today. And that's the webinar. That's the session. See how many people show up, start to chop up some of the key moments where I drop the mic and turn those into social posts. So that's the playbook that I would run. I'd stay true to that one simple idea of link littering, but I'd expand it around all of the different things that matter, or that somebody should know in that world and in that bubble. That would be my playbook from there.
Wow, that's a great playbook. We're gonna have to cut that out.
I like
remix that because that's so good.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's so good. The fact that you can break that down on the fly is fantastic. So with that, you mentioned a webinar. So when they're specifically in a topic, right? Then we want to get them into a funnel, if you will. What's the difference between a funnel then and a newsletter?
Yeah, great point. So if you have some people consuming your content on the webinar, ideally the webinar ends with a call to action where you're trying to get people into the funnel. And the difference would essentially be that a funnel is a series of events that are going to happen with the intention of moving someone from being aware of a product to actually using a product or buying a product or requesting a demo for a solution that you have or jumping on a sales call for something that you have. And the way that you move them through that is with intention. On a newsletter experience, you're essentially just constantly feeding people educational, engaging, entertaining, or empowering stories that hit their inbox and ideally does not result in them hitting unsubscribe. You use your newsletter to drive people to your funnel. So the people who subscribe to your newsletter are viewing you as a great information source. Every single Tuesday, they get an email from you and it's valuable insight and ideas that help them progress in their life or their career. Then eventually they might notice in that newsletter, you say, why don't you check out my webinar? Then they sign up for your webinar. They submit their email, their last name, their phone number, all that stuff. Then they go to the webinar, they enjoy it. At that point, you might have a call to action where you say, if you're interested in learning more, why don't you fill out this form? And we're taking on 4 clients that might be able to support this, or check out our product, check out our service, all those different things. And then they go into that. Or because you've already captured their email, you now have a drip campaign, which is a series of emails that are going to hit their inbox saying, hey, thank you so much for checking out our webinar. I have a question for you. Did you get a lot of value out of it? Is there anything we could have done better? So it's not a hard sell, but you're just like seeing if you can get a response. And then from that response, you might have a series of other emails that's going to move them further down the funnel by showing them case studies, by telling them a little bit more about your business, about your organization, and then eventually going in for the close and asking them to take action to buy something.
Wow. Wow. That's quite a breakdown there, man. That's quite the breakdown there. That makes so much sense. And yet so few. I'm guilty. I send a newsletter out. I never get anybody in a funnel.
Right.
I just educate.
Yeah.
And I never move them anywhere. So the goal then really is to move them from kind of a stranger to awareness, from awareness, hopefully to newsletter or funnel, depending on where they are, and then educate them enough so that you can drive them to somewhere where you can see whether or not they're a customer or not. Is that right?
That's it, 100%. So like once you have them on your email list and you're seeing that they have a high open rate, when you see that they're clicking through a lot of your links, that's a signal that this person is getting value from you. So now that you are getting value, you're giving them value, there's more likelihood of you being able to get some value back. You can now start to have conversations with them around, hey, I just launched this coaching course, or I just launched this community that is paid. I just launched this PDF that dives into all of the best episodes that I've held with all of the best tips. Do you want to pay $5, $10, 15, 20, 30, you name it, to get access to it? Those are the things that you can start to offer to people. And then at that rate, you can start to upsell from there. So it's like, if you can get someone to buy something for $100, you might be able to get them to buy something for $500. If you can get someone to buy something for $500, you might be able to get them to buy something for $9.99. So you can continue to move up in the ladder chain, the value chain.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. So with that, you also talk about some cheat codes, including my favorite cheat code of all time, for Contra: up, up, down, down, left, right, BA. And because I had a little brother, it was always select start, because he had to get 30 lives too. It wasn't enough for me to play by myself. So with that, talk to me about some more cheat codes, Ross.
Yeah. So one of my favorite cheat codes for distribution is on Reddit. And I know that a lot of marketers are hearing this and they're thinking, Ross, Reddit is not where I want to go. Reddit is the danger zone. I get it. I 100% get it. Like, Reddit will tell you where to go and how to get there really, really fast. But Reddit is a great place for marketers to do 2 things. One, listen. If you go into Reddit, you can go up to the search bar and you can type in site : your URL. Smash the enter button, and it will show you all of the moments in which your website was linked to on Reddit. That can be valuable because now you can see what people are saying about you, and you might even be surprised to find that one of your blog posts that you published is actually generating a ton of conversation in Reddit, and it's probably from 2016, and it might be time to reshare and promote that asset. So that would be one of my favorite cheat codes, is dive in and reverse engineer your own success on a community like Reddit, and then use that to find ways to distribute your content back into that place. Now, my last cheat code that I have to give on Reddit, and I talk about this a lot in the book, is find a community where your audience is spending time. And when you find that community, sort the content by top posts. When you sort content by top posts in a subreddit, you're only going to see the cream of the crop. You're going to see the best posts within that community. And that should tell you as a creator that this is what that community wants. I guarantee with 100% certainty, if I ever retired from the wonderful world of marketing and I said, I'm going to be a full-time fantasy football writer again, which I used to do back in the day, I would go to Reddit, I would sort the fantasy football subreddit by top posts, and I would give that community everything that is in the top post every single week. And I would crush. And any industry can do that. I'm a big believer that every subreddit is probably a 6-figure business for somebody if they can reverse engineer the top content and then give it back to people over and over and over again.
Wow. Wow. That gives me hope that I have hope that maybe somebody's going to actually read one of my posts. So that's
I think they will.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, cool. Well, Ross, do you have like cheat code, cheat sheet for people, or anything that people can get? In addition to, obviously, we want them to buy a copy of Create Once, Distribute Forever. No doubt about that. But what else can we give them for some value?
Yeah, so folks can check out my distribution checklist. It's a great resource that is essentially over 100 different ways to distribute your content online. If you go to rosssimmons.com/distropack, you can get access to over 100 different ways to distribute your content, whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Reddit, Quora, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it. No channel is left untouched. 100 plus ways to distribute your stories online today.
Wow. That's awesome. That's rosssimmons.com.
ROSS.
Yep. SIMMONDS.com/distropack. Folks can get that. Now, Ross, you've mentioned a ton of different places.
Yeah.
Where would be the one place, if people want to learn from you, the one place that you would say, hey, find me here? I'm going to share a lot here. And I know you share a lot of value everywhere, but where's your favorite place?
Yeah, right now my favorite place is LinkedIn. I'm a big believer in LinkedIn. I love their approach to business. I'm in the LinkedIn learning world. So if you want to check out some of my LinkedIn learning courses, you can find those on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. I don't think I've hit the max connection request, but it might get lost in the inbox. So I apologize if so, but connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely my go-to place right now.
Awesome. And friends, get a copy of Create Once, Distribute Forever. Ross went through some great stuff. He talked about the Sherlock Homeboy method, talked to you about remixing with, like Disney does, add value with your links, don't be a link litterer, the newsletter versus funnel, and how to use Reddit to get more. And he even gave us his distro pack at rosssimmons.com/distropack. Ross, this has been fantastic, man. Thanks so much for all the goodness that you shared, brother.
Phil, thanks so much for having me. I